to have you. She actually flies around in an airplane all over the country and makes people feel welcome. And that's what she does when she's here. Don't just hang around or you're going to get hung up. In your life, don't just hang around in life. If you do, you're going to get hung up. Don't just hang around. Because if you do, you'll get hung up. I've heard the story of the man with a watch always knows what time it is. A man with 2 watches is never sure exactly what time it is. That's the way our text is. The text talks about a counselor to advise Absalom. 3 weeks ago, we heard that the counselor was cursed. And so David sent someone else, one of his friends, to advise Absalom. Notice, Ahithophel said, Absalom, now I will choose 12,000 men. I will arise. I will go after David. I will follow him this night. I will have wearied and walk after him. And I will go and get him and follow him with these people. And I will smite the king, and he will die, and only he, and I shall not harm any of the people that follow him. Notice Ahithophel's plan. I. Ahithophel was making himself indispensable to Absalom. I will go after David. I will follow him. I will choose an army. I will go and do it. I will do all these things, and I will go and I will get him. He made himself indispensable. And meanwhile, you get the power. Meanwhile, you just sit here and you get the position. You just sit here and you get the kingdom. Notice Ahithophel had a pretty powerful plan. He said, you stay here. I'll go out and do all the dirty work. I'll go out and get it all done, and you'll get the power and the blessing. So all the people will be at peace. Sounds like a pretty good plan, doesn't it? Sounds like an excellent plan for Absalom because he's inexperienced at war. He's a young man. He doesn't know how to do anything but lie, cheat, and steal. He hasn't done anything right. He simply rebelled against his father. And so Ahithophel says, the revolt will be over. You'll have won. The revolution is complete. You will have won. The rebellion is done, and you will be in charge. Sounds like a pretty good plan. And it said in verse 4, the saying was heard, and Absalom agreed with it, as did all the elders agree also. It seemed to be simple. It seemed to be easy. It seemed to be complete. I will do all the work, and you will get all the glory. You see, what God seems to be saying in this text, he's laying it out. Don't just hang around or you'll get hung out to dry. Don't just hang around or you'll get hung out. So Ahithophel lays out a plan that's going to get things moving and keep him indispensable. And now Absalom shows his inexperience in revolution because he says, call now Hushai also. Let us hear likewise what he has to say. Don't just hang around or you're going to get hung out. Notice, This was David's man. This was David's plan. David's plan was to send Hushai in. He told him, I know you want to stay with me. Don't stay with me. Go. All the people are joining Absalom. You go in there and you tell them that you want to join him because all the people are joining him. He knows you're smart. He will look for your counsel. Give him bad counsel. Confuse what's going on. And so he joined later on. He got moving later on. And it was happening in verse 6. And Hushai was come. And Absalom told him what had been said by his opponent. And what Apophon had spoken. Is this the way you find the truth? You bring in one man, you find out what he has to say, then you bring in the opposition, and you tell the opposition everything he said. This was his plan. This was what he did. This was what he wanted to happen. This is what he was going to make do. And meanwhile, Hushai is just listening. He's just listening. You can hear the gears grinding. And he's just scheming. And he's planning. And he's listening. He heard everything that his opponent had said. He heard the enemy's plan before he had to say anything. Notice what he says. Verse 7. The counsel is not good at this time. I want to add the at this time because he couldn't argue with the plan. It was a good plan. You sit back. You do nothing. He'll do all the work. He'll take all the risk. He'll take all the danger. He'll go out and do it. And you then will get all the glory. But it's not good at this time. Notice, that's the only complaint that he had, is that it wasn't good at this time. See? God has a plan, and a good plan cannot afford to be delayed. What was he asking for? He simply said delay. He said, don't do anything right now. Take some time. Do something a little later. We'll work out something a little later. And then he goes on and he says, remember, I want you to remember your father is a mighty man. I want you to remember your father is a mighty warrior. I want you to remember that all the men with him, all of his friends, are valiant men. They're all warriors. They're all fighters. I want you to remember that. And they are all mad like a bear that has been robbed of her cubs. If there's one thing you ever see in a movie about trappers, don't get between a bear and her cubs. Because there's nothing going to keep that bear from going after the cubs. And that's the way we think David is. And notice the next thing he says, your father's a man of war. And all the people with him are valiant men. And all the people with him are experienced fighters. And your father is an experienced warrior. Notice, he lays it out. A good plan cannot afford to be delayed. In military planning, they have a saying, strike while the iron is hot. You know what that means?
Yes.
It means when you're making a sword, you stick the sword into the red hot coals, you stick it and you blow with the bellows, and it puffs and it puffs and it heats and it heats, and the sword gets red hot, and you pull it right out, put it on the anvil, and you start to beat it, and you start to shape it, and you start to make it follow, and you start to make it happen while it's red hot. And when it cools off, what do you do with it? Put it back in. You don't put the sword in, get it red hot, then take it out and talk about it for a little while, and then think about what you're going to do. Then you go and read the blueprint. Then you come back and you hit it a couple times. In military, strike while the iron is red hot because you're trying to shape. what's going on. Notice the delaying action that Hundai lays out. And Hushai begins by casting in doubts. He begins by talking in doubtful terms. Do you ever have trouble with doubts? I want to point out that nothing gets done by doubt. No buildings are built by doubt. No relationships are forged by doubt. No financial programs are built by doubt. Everything comes by belief and strength and consolidation and pulling together. You get everybody working in the same time, the same direction, going the same way, and things start to happen. And the first thing that Hushai does is he takes and he starts dealing in doubts. Once again, I want to remind you what he said. Your father's a military man. He's a mighty man. Everybody knows he's a mighty man. Everybody in Israel knew. They had a song about you, Dad. It was popular on the radio. Everybody sang, Saul has killed his thousands and David's killed his 10,000s. Everybody knew that David was that way. And he lays out the doubts of what are there. Behold, he's probably hiding now. And if the people hear that you go after him and you make any mistake at all and you do anything that doesn't work at all, the rumor's going to fly through the whole community. There's been a slaughter of Absalom and he's a failure. Is that a doubtful statement? I think so. Notice, it's built on doubts. And you know, Satan likes to make us doubt. You know, there are other people who can do that, but you can't. I want to explain to you, Satan says, you're not good enough. You're not smart enough. You're not lucky enough. You're not close enough to God. Remember when you sinned last week? Remember when you sinned as a teenager? Remember when you sinned as a young boy? And he will be here creating doubts that you are not good enough, you are not strong enough, you will not be blessed because God doesn't like you. And that is how Satan brings his doubts into our life. And that's how Hushai, David's spy on the inside, if the people hear that you have lost, the rumor will fly that there was a slaughter and you'll never go around because everybody knows that your father is a mighty man. Everybody knows that the warriors with him are valiant. How many times do you need to tell the guy that David's a mighty man? Do you think Absalom needed to be reminded how good a warrior his father was? Don't you think Absalom, all the time he was growing up, heard group after group, time after time, that David had slaughtered, David had conquered, David had amassed, David had won? He knew all these things, and here is Hushai working against him by creating doubts on all those things that he already knew. Don't let Satan do that to you. One of the first things every one of us should do is prepare for war every morning. How do you prepare for war every morning? Well, you're told how in the New Testament. When you get up, you put on the helmet of salvation. God, I thank you that I am saved. I thank you that I am your child. I thank you that I can see things with a saved perspective. Lord, I want to thank you that you've covered me with the breastplate of righteousness, that you've given me goodness, that you have given me not that which I deserve, but you have given me the goodness of Yeshua, the goodness which was won at the cross, the goodness when he lived life perfectly for me. Lord, I thank you that even though I've made mistakes, you wrap yourself around me like a belt of truth. I had an experience this week that I'd like to share with you. Because, as you all know, I was sick a while ago. And when I was sick a while ago, I didn't plan on it, but I wound up losing 40 pounds. And because I was losing 40 pounds, all my pants were falling straight down. And they'd go from here to here to here to there. So I took, and Diane said, I know somebody who's a cobbler. We'll go to him. And I took all my belts, and I had to make an extra hole, an extra hole, an extra hole, an extra hole. So now I just take the belt and I tighten it till it's tight. I tighten it till I say. You know what happens with the truth of Christ when you look at Christ's truth and not your past failure? God tightens it. God puts it just the right tightness around your waist. He puts the right tightness that it holds up the knife. It holds up the sword. It holds up the equipment. When you get up in the morning, put on your feet the shoes of the preparation of the gospel of peace. I want to have a peaceful day. I don't want to fight with anybody. Nobody's going to trick me into it. No Hushai is going to come into my life and talk me into doubting myself. No Hushai is going to come in and talk me into fighting and getting angry. I'm not going to believe a demon can steal my keys. I'm not going to believe a demon can break my windows. I'm not going to believe a demon can not walk through my door and take something out of my house. I'm not believing a demon's going to be able to steal something out of my purse. It's just not going to happen because I am standing on the peace of God. I have the shield of faith and I have the sword of the Spirit. When you get up in the morning, you get prepared for war, because I want to tell you, Satan is trying to break each one of God's people, just like Hushai was there trying to break Absalom, because he was on the side of David. He was on the other side. How many times does he need to remind this young man that every warrior that was with David was a valiant fighter? 3, 4, 5. In one short sermon, he lays out 4 times. And so what he says, don't go after him, because if you lose and there's a slaughter, it's going to get around the whole of Israel that you can't handle it and you can't do it and you're not going to win. What we will do is we will come upon him in some kind of an open ground. I want to point out that your father is an open ground warrior. Your father knows the terrain because he was a shepherd for 20 years over all these fields, all these hills, all these areas. He knows everything. So what we will do, we will take, and what we need to do is we will just let him do what he does on the open ground. And we will take and we'll keep you in the city. And when you're in the city, all the men from Dan in the north to Beersheba in the south, they will all come to the city to be with you, Absalom. You'll be there, and everybody will be coming to you, and everybody will want you to be the king, and you'll be there, and everybody will be coming to you. And notice what he's doing. He aggrandizes, he aggrandizes, he aggrandizes. He talks about him, and he talks about him, how easy it's going to be, how everything's going to happen. And he says, your father will be out in the country and you'll be in the city. And when everybody from Israel has come to you, it'll be so easy to attack David and destroy him. That's what he lays out. You stay in the city. The people will come to you. See? Meanwhile, the text is saying, don't just hang around or you're going to get hung up. Don't just hang around or you're going to get hung up. And they determined the counsel of Hushai is better than that of Ahithophel. Now, I want to ask you a question. This is a really important question. Was the counsel of Hushai better than Ahithophel from a military point of view? Or was it simply easier and appeared easier? See, what he did, after filling and creating all this doubt, he laid out a very easy scenario. Do nothing and it'll all just fall your way. Just hang around and it'll all happen. I don't believe that Jesus told us to do that. He says, until I come back, you take and you hold. You move and you go out. You know, we're told something in our culture which is very unusual. we're told, you are not allowed to talk about religion because it's impolite to talk about religion. While all the time, the other people, and I don't know who the other people are, but you know who they are, they're cursing and they're swearing and they're lying and they're telling half-truths and they're slandering and they're doing all kinds of things that are wrong. And we're told that we're not supposed to push our religion. Well, they're pushing their religion all the time. It happens. And so what we have is the advice of Hushai actually better from a military point of view than Ahithophel? I believe not. I believe it was just easier advice. Just sit there, do nothing, and everything will come your way and everything's going to be okay. And then you can lead the people to the conquest of David. And we will all follow you. And the whole city will be after you. And they will come from Dan to Beersheba to follow you, and they will be your. And you will get the glory. Not some other guy leading 12,000 soldiers. You'll get the glory. And all you have to do is speak and be there and do it easy. Just hang around and it's all going to come your way. Now, the Bible does something. God gives a clear explanation of what's going on here, because he says some people may be too naive to think in military terms. The Lord had appointed Hushai to defeat God's counsel of Ahithophel. Does anybody remember from last week what the name Ahithophel means?
Fool.
Fool. F-O-O-L. Yes. It means the foolish one. And so David took one of his men and said, you go in there, you give him counsel that will make things look foolish and bring evil out him. And that's what he did. And so the Lord takes and he provides for David by this man speaking there. And Hushai said to Zadok the priest, send your sons, Ahimsa and Jonathan, and let them go to David, because David had this all laid out. David was such a warrior that he already had the intelligence laid out. He said, you go to Absalom, you find out what's going on, you take the Ark of the Covenant there, and when you find out what he's doing, you send his two sons to me so that I will be able to know what he's doing. David already psyched out what's going to happen with Absalom. He knows what's happening. And by morning, I love this, by morning, not one man was left on the plain of David, because they had all abandoned there and they had crossed the Jordan River and they were gone. You couldn't find them and you couldn't destroy them. And the people, it says, were bringing food and they were bringing things to David, because the people were now figuring out what was happening and they were consolidating around David. Now, the interesting point, so when he heard that his counsel was not followed, Ahithophel saddled his ass, got his house in order, hanged himself until dead, and had himself buried in his father's sepulcher. And my question was, why did he do that? Why did he so quickly leave, go home, get his house in order, hang himself till dead? I've got a number of things. One, it had said last week that his word was as the law of God. He knew that his word was no longer as the law of God. He was being judged like everyone else. People who are sneaky, people who are underhanded, can't stand being treated like everyone else. They will always try to make things that they get what they want. The I that he had put, I will get the 12,000, I will go after David, I will do this, I will do that, I will kill him. All of these I's made him indispensable, and he suddenly discovered he was not an indispensable man. that he had to work, he had to prove himself, he had to make things happen every single day. The fourth thing that may have led to that is he realized that Absalom was operating by fear, not by vision. When you're operating by fear, not by vision, you're not really following God closely, because God will give you a vision. That vision will move you forward. That vision will empower you to bring other people with you. That vision will empower things to go. When you're moving by fear, that separates from everyone. And why did Ahithophel go home and kill himself? When Absalom came to him and said he was sacrificing to the Lord, did he figure out at this point that the Lord was with David? Did he figure out, even back here, that David had been anointed to be king of Israel and Absalom never had the hand of God upon him? And did he suddenly realize what a mistake he had made? He knew that God was not taking the kingdom away from David. Why did Ahithophel take and kill himself? Was it possible that he knew that the plan that Hushai had given to Absalom was doomed to fail? Did he look at it and he knew instinctively that if David was not killed tonight, he would never be killed? The revolution was already over as far as he was concerned, and he was a loser. He knew that David was a mighty man. David had been one of his best friends. He knew what David would do to him. And if David didn't do it, all David's friends would do it, because they were all men of valor. And did he finally figure out that you can't relish on God? What he should have done, what he could have done, was repented, gone to God, say, I've sinned, and asked God for mercy. But his faith and his strength were not that strong. And so he simply went home, saddled his ass, got his house in order, jumped off the balcony with a rope around his neck, like Judas, and they buried him in his father's sepulcher. Maybe that was part of it. He wanted to be buried in his father's sepulcher. He didn't want to die on a field fighting David when he knew he couldn't win. It's an interesting story, because God says, don't just stand around or you may get hung up. Work for God in everything. Will you rise for the Aaronic benediction?